Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's video kind of like jumped up on me. Now I had planned to make a Terrax video as in like discussing my initial interpretation of everything I have heard about Terrax to try and pass my verdict, because I do not have a Terrax of my own yet. I did not purchase the early access bundles, so I didn't even really try to get him, but I really also do not want to try and get him. But before we get to that bit, the actual main part of the video kind of like jumped on me, and I just wanted to also first and foremost give a huge shout out to Jay Silver. He's a cool guy. I believe he has been making MCOC videos for quite a while, but I only recently kind of like stumbled up on his channel, and he's a nice guy. He uploads fairly frequently. He does live streams as well, and definitely go and check him out. If not for anything else what he did before that, then for the fact that he did in fact take up Terrax. He pulled the Terrax from early access bundle, I assume, and he took him up to rank 5. And I saw this video and I definitely thought it's worth checking out, because as we all know, Terrax, one of the kind of like more popular complaints that's out there from all the CCP members is the absolute lack of damage. And if this champion had any chance of being actually useful, then that would be with a decent to good scaling to when he gets ranked up fully, and then we could potentially see some really good use of the character. Now, it's very important to note that I'm not trying to have a dig at Jay for taking Terrax up, because obviously Terrax, just like Korg, will have a use in Alliance War defense. Therefore, it is not worthless kind of like meme rank up. And hey, I'm always up for people taking up whoever they find fun and useful. Therefore, all the props to Jay for taking up Terrax. Nothing and none of this kind of like negative feedback on the champion is any way, shape or form meant to be negative feedback on Jay. Just want to make that absolutely clear before we go any further. But with that, basically, he showcased Terrax's damage against Winter Soldier, and then in some of the Act 6, and yeah, it's awful. So here we can see it's him basically maxing him out. He took him to Sig 20, but that's like fair enough. Sig isn't like that important to actually showcase the damage. Now, the one thing that Terrax does have like as a guaranteed decent damage output is that heavy attack, which is supposed to have that massive damage output increase and a guaranteed crit. And it crits for about 14k. There are plenty of champions in game as rank 5 stars who can crit for that without needing a crit, and who crit well about 20-30k on crits. So that heavy attack saving grace is also relatively awful, to be fair. And the Terrax is by all means an absolute lemon as far as I'm concerned. Now keep in mind, this is a rank 5-star champion on suicides against the Realm of Legends Winter Soldier. Here you can see 80 hits in the fight. The Winter Soldier is still more than healthy, and the total fight, I believe, took about 200 hits. Anyways, you guys can go and check out the video. I will leave a link to this particular video in my video description, so definitely go check out. Hit the sub for Jay. I'm sure he's gonna upload a bunch more interesting footage. He also does streams, so it can be another place where you guys hang out. So yeah, go and help the guy out. He seems to be a really genuine cool guy. I've only spoken with him once, like briefly on stream, but either way, shout outs to Jay being done. We're gonna jump on Camp's Podcast of Champions spreadsheet. He released these spreadsheets for pretty much every champion that he reviews, and he lists pros, cons, and in this case he has actually listed the defense as another section for a champion. He typically doesn't do that, and I like to use his spreadsheet as a base while I'm discussing the new champions myself. And first and foremost, I just want to make something perfectly clear. Terrax is a lemon of lemons. He is the king of lemons. He makes Ebony Maw, in my opinion, look relatively muscular with a fairly good physique and damage output. Terrax, despite his animations, despite wielding a huge axe, it's horrible. It's really bad. As you saw there, rank 5-star, took about 5 minutes and about 200 hits to take down Winter Soldier, and that's on suicides. That's awful. There are a whole bunch of champions that take down Winter Soldier 4 times as fast. And yeah, it's quite crazy how a champion that by its abilities seem like it could be an offensive powerhouse, offensive tank, the next generation of Omega Red, has been absolutely shot on and destroyed by the numbers. Because the numbers make no sense. He has a 0 damage while the rock field is off, and when the rock field is on, it disappears quickly, and the damage is as an average champion normally has, to kind of put it in a perspective. So when the rock field's active, he's Medicore. When the rock field is not active, he is just the worst. Either way, let's jump to the pros. Shock and bleed immunity. Shock immunity is actually quite a big pro because there aren't still all that many champions that are inherently immune to shock. And unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't really change much, because realistically, if you're dealing with Act 6 content, currently, let's say, not too many people, even if you have a ranked up or fairly stacked up Korg, for instance, bring in Korg for bleed or shock path, even though you technically could, but you don't, because you don't have all day to waste on one lane. And the same thing is going to be against Terrax. Yes, of course, shock immunity is useful, but offensively, realistically, you're much more likely going to be looking at your roster, I don't know, bringing in Electro if you have Electro. Far better damage output. You're more likely going to be using that guy. So shock immunity is there though. So if push comes to shove, he can do shock or EMP modification path. Decent synergies for Red Hulk and Mordo. That is true. Those synergies are interesting, and those synergies are primarily the reason why I would personally be interested in Terrax. I definitely wouldn't really want to rank the guy up, but those synergies did seem quite interesting for Red Hulk and Mordo, and especially for Red Hulk, I think it kind of gives Red Hulk a nice new bit of utility, because previously Red Hulk couldn't do all that much to massive armor opponents, and it just gives him new ways how to deal with some opponents, like Red Skull, for instance. You can just keep on breaking those stacks away, so on and so forth. So that synergy I do like. I think it is quite cool, but unfortunately it's nowhere near enough to actually save the Terrax. Possible utility with Despair and his ability to stack up to 11 armor breaks. Also possible solution for this track. Now this again is not all that easy, because you only gain those armor breaks realistically while the rock field is active, and as it turns out, that rock field won't be active for nearly as much as you think it is going to be. Now yes, you have an armor break on level 3, but that's just a single debuff there. 10 of those 11 armor breaks are typically held up by a rock field, and then you can refresh them with your light hits. But the duration isn't that long to do it kind of reliably without a power control if opponent isn't cooperating you very much, throwing the special attacks. So whilst it definitely does exist there, whilst it can come in handy with the Spare Mastery, that there is a plethora of champions who also access debuffs, and it's undeniable that it is useful, but it's nowhere near close to being a saving grace of Terrax as a champion. And now we're going to go to strengths on defense. Potential for unavoidable aura damage. That is kind of true, but again, it's not really all that unavoidable. It's only unavoidable if you're in the corner of the map and you can't dash back. Now, it's kind of like Omega Red, I think, in a degree, or Mephisto. Like, obviously Mephisto is annoying, but you can go and fight Mephisto without an Incinerate immune champion and just stay away from the aura. Don't hit him too much or use champions that do a lot of damage. So yes, it obviously will be annoying, and I'm sure it's gonna get some kills on defense, but as all in all, currently, honestly, I'm not too afraid of Terrax as a defensive powerhouse, at least not with the existing node combinations. and able to benefit from flow and siphon tactics. Now that is useful. Obviously, the more defensive tactics affect this guy, the more useful it is. And flow and siphon tactics, pretty much as far as I'm concerned, are the toughest defensive tactics out there. So that's definitely a plus there. Able to resist block penetration on his base kit. That's kind of cool. I'm sure it's going to come useful or quote-unquote annoying in some situations, but overall I don't think it's also too big of a deal as well. Let's go on offensive cons now. His kit heals with disjointed and completely counterintuitive. Yeah, kind of like offensively, to play him, to make the biggest use of his cosmic charge and indestructible charge, you will kind of have to get hit intentionally, and a lot of things can go wrong there. There are many champions that inflict damage over time debuffs, or many different abilities that typically trigger when you get hit, and all in all, it does not seem, or at least as far as I have seen, to be the most fluid kind of like gameplay. So I could definitely agree with that. The armor breaks activated by his aura, you don't usually last long enough to refresh after using special, or if you have to bait the enemy special. That is exactly the point that I mentioned, that it's going to be tricky to refresh those armor breaks, so they probably would benefit from increased duration and potency quite a bit, but I digress. The window of landing a heavy attack to benefit from guaranteed crit right before the aura is ending is super short, makes playing him for optimal DPS very stressful. Also, the reach on heavy attack is super short. And now this is, as far as I'm concerned, kind of like a choice you typically will have to make, whether you're going to try and push for that stressful narrow window, or you're simply going to finish your aura up yourself with a heavy attack without trying to wait for the last possible moment. But again, that would not be playing with optimal DPS. But again, DPS definitely won't be something you are very focused on when using this character, I feel. This champion is going to be something in turn similar to Red Hulk. Maybe useful in an extremely niche matchup, but damage output is going to be fairly dank, and to use him well, it's also going to be extremely complicated and definitely not worth the effort to run him right. It's kind of going to be one of those champions that can do something, but it's pretty much never worth the effort it takes to run him offensively. Not really tanky on offense. You have this champion that requires super aggressive play, consistently keeping an eye on timers and power bars, but you only get your indestructible charges when launching specials. They drop if you parry or block, or when aura runs out, which happens very quickly, and they don't even protect you against special 3s. And yeah, that's pretty much what we discussed previously. So those indestructible charges are obviously nice and cool bit, but I feel quite often also will be a burden on the champion itself when it's going to come to nodes like Pilfer, for instance. Opponents are going to get a bunch of power, or I don't know, buffet nodes, and a whole chunk of other ones obviously that abuse this type of heavy gaining of buffs, and they don't seem to be doing all that much. They can mitigate some of the block damage while you're trying to be aggressive and pushing opponent, but outside of that, I don't think they serve too much of a purpose, and they are definitely more kind of like beneficial defensively rather than offensively. So I don't really like the design of them, and the fact that they can't protect you from special 3s. The power cosmic charge don't really make much of a difference in terms of making him less stressful to play. Yeah, I also could agree to that. It seems like for a champion that has persistent charges and persistent charge mechanic, that persistent charge mechanic is utterly wasted. As in, like, yes, you're gonna get a couple more of those indestructible charges when you launch a special attack, which is cool, but it's not gonna really help you kind of like progress. You can't compare, for instance, him with Corvus or Cal or Venom the Duck, or Morningstar or whoever, where these persistent charges and the champion ramp up actually does increase the capability of your champion and damage output, so on and so forth. And here, those persistent charges seem just like a tiny little small added benefit, which is kind of like, yeah, it's cool, but how really useful it is to kind of like progress your play. So I think they completely missed the point with the whole persistent charge mechanic. They probably should have added some sort of fury buff that's linked to the indestructibles, and the more indestructibles you have, the more furies you have, and something there. There's definitely kind of like a piece missing in my opinion. And low crit rate and low crit damage, why am I even surprised? He hits for absolutely nothing. You can choose to counter him with power control. I can see champs like Quake, Claire, Voodoo, and Magic to be very effective against him. That's pretty much my point, and that's why I also don't think he's going to be overly useful in Alliance War, even like as a boss. You just bring in Voodoo and you turn all of those indestructible charges into poison and watch him melt away. Plus boss node in Alliance War obviously has a adaptive node, which also gives you additional amount of buffs, and Voodoo would have class advantage. And yeah, I can definitely see this guy being completely eaten up by champions like Voodoo, because Voodoo has power control. Voodoo can convert all of those indestructible charges in poison, and I think that would be a relatively easy way how to deal with the guy. And Magic as well. Magic power control and level 3s for massive damage. So yeah, I don't really think that he's going to be worthwhile Cosmic Defender. He's definitely going to catch some people, he's going to get some heals here and there, but he definitely also has a plethora of extremely effective counters. Or you can just fight him with meta characters. I don't see Terrax even in boss node managing to kill or even launch a special versus fully boosted Corvus. Now that's a bit harsh, but fair enough. Or you can use champs that counter passive damage like Namor or Gulk. And another thing is, yes, because we can see like a 3-star Namor completely shred up at Terrax, so that's again another meta counter for the guy. So I think this guy has too many inherent weaknesses to be great defensive powerhouse if opponents have an option to pick a suitable counter for him. And I can imagine out of all 10 people in battle group, you will always be able to. He's gonna be one of those champions that you're gonna find annoying on quest lines, probably fair amount, and that you're gonna have to bring in a counter for, but I don't think it's gonna be hard. So all in all, I think Terrax is pretty much redefining the term of lemon for 2020. I also think that the month of March, Kabam has completely dropped the ball when it comes to champion abilities. The animations are fantastic as always, and the animation department is top notch. The character design for Moleman and for Terrax, both of them I think are gonna be pretty annoying on defense on certain nodes and stuff like that. At times they're not gonna be new Annihiluses, but they're just going to be frustrating champions with very low to no offensive use for the vast majority of the players, and champions you don't really want to pull. But I guess we need some of those as well. So yeah, definitely not a successful month when it comes to the new champions released. I personally will invest no money or units trying to acquire these guys, and I suggest you do the same, unless you're kind of like desperate for a somewhat decent defender to be ranked up, but I doubt there are too many people who are like that. All of that being said, again, huge shout out to Jay. Definitely go check him out. He's a cool dude. Hopefully you like his content, you like his stuff. And if you do not hesitate to give him a sub. Once again, nothing I said in this video is meant to somehow throw shade in his direction for ranking Terrax. Again, I can completely understand it. As a defender, I have a ranked up Modok and so on and so forth. But as a champion, Terrax is a lemon. Yeah, all of that being said, I'm pretty much done for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think of Terrax. Do you have him? How do you enjoy him? Do you think he has any wonderful piece of utility or anything else that's I have missed? I know I didn't talk about him being immune to power control from metal champions, which again is just annoying for defense purpose, I think. But either way, let me know what you guys think about him, and if you like the video, hit that like, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons. I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.